Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent experiences in business.
Learn what their cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
Hey, welcome, cohesive leaders. We're so excited you could be with us today, and we have a special guest for you, Danielle Shroyer. Danielle, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you look so great. If you're watching this on video, you'll see this great smile that you have, this great countenance that's coming around you, and I'm sure that's going to come through in the video today. I mean, the audio portion of our show today.
Yeah, loving it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start like we start with everyone. So Danielle, tell us something about you that's not on your resume, something we would not find on LinkedIn, a little quirk, a hobby, interest, things like that.
So I guess recently I started digging in a little bit to human design to help me better understand marketing for my coaching business. So I think that's been a journey for me, and I haven't really expressed that anywhere else. So yeah, it's been really interesting just to kind of get to know myself more.
Yeah. So what would be something personal that you would also share?
I have 2 dogs and a boyfriend from Belgium. So he lives here now with me. He moved here last fall, and we're going to Belgium for a month at the end of the year. So that's exciting.
Nice. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's good that you separated the 2 dogs before you introduced the boyfriend. So it's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't be offended, though. He loves them just as much.
That's right. And those dogs are going to bark possibly through our podcast. So if it shows up, that's all part of the experience, because we're a one-take wonder. We do no editing. It's exactly what happened during the recording is what people are listening to.
Real life.
Yes, real life. Yeah, that's it. So, all right. So one of the things we like to do is to get to know you a little bit more and have you express that to our listeners. Even though we know you pretty well, we've worked with you before. You helped support our Cohesion Culture crew activities. So what I'm looking for here is for you to describe yourself with characteristics and details. It'll just be the bees. So there we go. All right. So hold on. Yeah. So we'll unmute you in a minute. All right. So what you're going to do is describe for yourself, like details, things about you, words that you would use to be descriptive, not about your roles. Like, oh, I'm a person who likes to do this. No, because that's a role that you're describing. So what we're really looking for are your own personal characteristics. And these would be hopefully things that people would say about you when you're not in the room, or if you are in the room. Yeah. So either way. Okay.
Right. So I have very high integrity, and I'm very fair. I'm kind but direct. And I think those are probably 4 characteristics that people would describe me with.
Okay, great. And how early on in your life did you recognize those characteristics about you?
I wouldn't say, I mean, I've always been kind. So I guess even in school, right? I've always been kind, and fair. I guess early on, but it just continues to show up throughout my life. So
yeah. And did you have a particular thing about you that you changed or modified as you were evolving your leadership and evolving into your work environment?
I think you have to, the biggest thing with leadership is you have to not lead the way that you think you need to be led. You need to lead the way that the people that you're leading need to be led, or because it's not a one size fits all. I have people that are go-getters and they'll jump in and they'll take initiative and they'll go do it. I have other people that are a little insecure and unsure, and they need a little bit more coaching and guidance, and that's okay. So it's just different, different people or need different ways of leadership.
Okay, great. Now that you've described a little bit about you, then let's talk about the roles that you play. So what are some roles? I know that you wear an HR hat because we know that about you. So go ahead and expand on that and other roles that you have.
Yeah, so I've been in HR for about 20 years. I've been in corporate environments for about 25 years. And so most recently, I've started doing some coaching because my favorite part of my HR role was growing and developing my team. So now I'm doing that on my own. So just growing and developing and supporting and being there to ask those questions that maybe they don't, know to ask themselves. And yeah, just the coach in me, I guess, comes out.
Yeah, cool.
So what else besides that though? So what area of HR? Like there's lots of hats, there's a lot of divisions of HR. Some people go into it because of the people, some go the processes. Where do you find yourself in that?
I went into it because it was something that my employer would pay for, that I was interested in. It wasn't really something that I said I wanted to be an HR professional, but I was always interested in psychology, so people. So I joined HR as I got my bachelor's and my master's. And then ultimately I was a generalist for most of my career. However, the last 7.5 years, I was a talent acquisition leader for a manufacturing facility here in the area. And my team brought in about 1,500 people. So talent acquisition recruiting has kind of always been a passion of mine, but it's always been usually a part of the overall HR that I do. But yeah, I love working with people. I love helping them understand, because a lot of times they'll come and say, oh, my boss is doing this, and they don't really understand. Like, and I can kind of go, well, maybe the business did this, or maybe that happened, or have you thought about this, or have you talked to him? Things like that. Like that's, I think, what I enjoy the most. But I also don't like to hear when somebody comes and says, hey, Janie pulled my hair. Like I don't want that drama now. So
yeah, right. Yeah. And it does show up. So
yes, it does.
All right. So what is the experience that you have been thinking about to share with our listeners today?
So I had during my 7.5 years, I had different teams, right? So different groups of people, and I hired a new employee, and we were struggling to see eye to eye. We were just really struggling, and I usually can get along with pretty much everybody, but we were missing each other. And so I ended up putting her on a performance improvement plan because I just wasn't seeing the performance. I wasn't seeing her initiative. And in that performance improvement plan, I set expectations. And when we had our follow-up meeting, she was meeting them. So it was, you know what? Clearly this was my fault. I wasn't setting clear expectations for you. So that, I was able to take her off her performance improvement plan and continue on. And we worked well together after that. And once I realized that I needed to set those clear expectations, everything was good as gold.
And with that particular experience, would you say, is that something that maybe followed you through your leadership? Like, did you have an aha moment that all of a sudden said, oh, wait a minute, I'm not setting clear expectations? How did you see that before and then ignored it? Or did you just see this for the first time?
I think I do that but like I said before, everybody is managed or led differently and they react to different things differently. And so I think I clicked more with previous employees than I did with this particular employee. So whenever I talked about expectations, they understood what they were, versus if I said, these things need to be done, she didn't necessarily take the ownership, of those things. It was because they had a group of 3 that did the same job. So I think she didn't necessarily feel like certain things were her responsibility. But as I started seeing, like after the performance improvement plan and the expectations being on paper, because you talk about them, you don't actually send them out. Like I never did. But putting them down on paper and actually having them in front of her, she got them all.
And did you notice that after you wrote it down, or did you, or so like once you wrote it down and then you had a discussion, then you realized, oh my gosh, she is meeting all of them because she brought information into the meeting?
It was, so we had the performance improvement plan meeting. I gave her the performance improvement plan. And then when we did the follow-up, because I had check-ins, after I set all the expectations, I had check-ins. So when we did our check-in, that's when I saw her starting to meet those expectations.
Okay, good. So you had silent expectations for this individual that you had not clearly articulated, or you thought you had, but you didn't have them written down. So your assessment of them was, okay, they're just not they're a non-performer. And then you deliver this message to her, and then you follow up. And when you follow up, you realize she can meet all of them. So it wasn't that she was doing them ahead of time, right? It was that she met them after you had clearly given them to her.
Correct.
Okay.
Because she didn't know what truly was expected of her because it wasn't written down or presented before her.
Presented the way that she needed to hear them.
And how do you think she interpreted your relationship with her back? Like, what kept her from possibly not saying to you, hey, I don't understand, like I don't have clear expectations of what you need from me. What do you think kept her from reaching out to you?
I'm not sure, because she sat directly across from me. So, I mean, we were looking at each other all day. So I'm not sure if if we hadn't built a bond, that she didn't feel comfortable. I'm really not sure what kept her from that. But I know once we did and again, I think a lot of times when employees get put on performance improvement plans, they think this is the beginning of the end, right?
Right.
And I didn't know if it was going to be the beginning of the end. I didn't go into it thinking, oh, well, I'm going to terminate her. That wasn't my intention. But also, like, she needs to be aware that these are the expectations and she's not meeting them. And so that was where we were. And then I think once we got that out of the way, then our relationship improved. Because then I think, especially whenever I started seeing that she was making progress and I recognized it, right? So then I think that made her realize that I'm not out to get her. I'm just out to get the job done, right?
Right. Now, there are people who are listening to this who are wanting to grow, develop, and advance in their career, and they may have a supervisor very similar to you. I mean, you're a very pleasant individual, so it's not like you were out to get anybody. What would you recommend? Like what would you have recommended that she do that she didn't do? Like, what would you have wanted her to have done to have maybe brought this further along a little bit better, and she would have been taking care of herself instead of waiting for you to do that form?
So there was a little bit of drama at the time on the team. So I would recommend coming to the manager, coming to the leader, and talking to them, and not getting involved in that drama that was going on within the coworkers, the colleagues. Always keep that open line of communication. So, she could come ask me, I'm not sure I'm doing what you need me to do or want me to do. Can we talk about this? And I would have been more than happy to sit down and talk. And I think that's the biggest thing is communication. I think every single situation that I come across, it's like miscommunication or lack of communication. And by, I think in our brains, we put like this wall up, like, oh, that's the manager, like that. I don't want to say something that I'm not supposed to say, and we're just people too. So, I'm open to admitting I made a mistake. And honestly, if my team makes a mistake, I will take the blame for that too, because that's my fault. So I think that's the big thing is just keep that communication open.
Good.
Was the timing of any of this, was there any cost to you?
Just time, just time, because I was in meetings a lot in that role. And so just, time taken to complete the performance improvement plan, and just, you kind of expect things to get done, and the other folks are picking up the slack. The one guy was working till 7, 8 o'clock at night, and but he didn't care. He's just like getting it done and
Right.
Excited about what he achieved the next day. But yeah, you didn't have that same energy, but that doesn't mean that she didn't want to do the work. It just means she didn't necessarily know what was expected.
Do you think there was a change? So you're both in HR at this point. Was there a change in her perception of you? Did you have this conversation with her afterwards and be like, oh, like I didn't clearly communicate this? Or how did that relationship transpire post, improvement process?
So the conversation we had, and whenever we had the follow-up meeting, right after the performance improvement plan, we sat and we went through, and I was like, well, you're doing great, and I said, great, you've done this, you're doing this, you're working on this, you know, this is all fantastic and this is all I can ask, right? I just want you to be able to achieve what we need you to achieve and move on. So it was just, you know, me recognizing that she is doing the work and that she is, you know, and I also said, if you have any questions, please let me know. Because the rest of the team isn't going to know what's in my brain either, unless I tell them, but they're not necessarily, you know, they're not going to be mind readers, especially after I come out of another meeting. Like they don't know what I got in that meeting. So it's just, yeah, it was a good relationship afterwards. It was a struggle in the beginning, but then I think she saw that I wasn't trying to set her up to fail. It was just, you know, a situation that I think we were just kept missing each other with communication. And so it was a clear way that we could communicate, and she succeeded.
So what do you do differently now that you have had this enlightenment? What do you do differently with employees?
Ask them to repeat what they believe they need to do, just so that we can make sure that, and it's not like because to an extent that could feel like, okay, what did I just tell you? You know what I mean? But more, it's like, you know, what did you understand from what I just said? Just so we can make sure that we're on the same page. That way there's no miscommunication.
Yeah, oftentimes Ben will say that communication is not the key, it is comprehension. And
Yes.
so, you know, really doing it. And part of a 4-step process that we introduce through our coaching and our teachings has to deal with a framework that includes debriefing, which is for comprehension. It is really, you know, getting clarity about what it is that was said. And there's different techniques that you can use for that type of debriefing. So what can you think of would be another technique aside from just having them repeat the information?
Mm-hmm. I think checking in and making sure that, you know, they're understanding what they're doing, how things are going. I did one-to-ones with my team, so that was just, and it wasn't micromanaging, because I think they can all agree that I'm not a micromanager. But you know, just checking in, making sure that they don't need anything from me, making sure that they're on the right track, and also just being there to be supportive and able to answer questions if they have any questions.
Okay, great. Good. So then taking this situation that you have here, so you have an employee reporting to you.
Mm-hmm.
That employee reporting to you, you have some interpretation that they're not meeting expectations of things to do. They obviously are doing work.
Mm-hmm.
You're really close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the fact that you said, all right, I've got to put this in writing, that actually got you to doing that? Or did somebody offer advice to you to say, you know, you really should write these things down and make sure that this person is really clear?
No, it was more, like I said, I had 3 people in the same role, and I was watching or seeing the product from the 2 and not so much seeing the product from her. So it was more like, okay, something's not working. Because like I said, the one guy was working till 8 o'clock at night. The other guy, I know he was online at night when he went home. So it was just what is going on. And I think it was more accountability, right? And I think that's the big thing too, is I think accountability is something that is not, it needs to be more common than it is.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of times people don't hold people accountable, and that leads to a lot of mess in organizations. So me holding her accountable showed the other employees that I supported them as well. And I think that was a big deal for them. And not so much that they knew I did a performance improvement plan, you know, that they knew, but I think they saw the change in her work.
Yeah.
You know, so that if you were on my team, you knew you were going to be held accountable.
At what point in your 20-year HR career did this situation happen?
Late. It
Okay.
it was late in my career, because most of my time I was a HR department of 1. So I was either HR department of 1, or I had like 1 direct report. So in my last role, I had a team of about 6, and it was like over 7.5 years. So it was, you know, a different 6 people, because and that's what I loved, like growing and developing my team, and they watched them move on to like an HRBP or a buyer or something. So that was my favorite part of that. but yeah, it happened during that last 7.5 years of my HR career.
So prior to that, because you really hadn't many on the team, you had to learn how to adapt to your team's needs because you didn't really have to really account for that sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Very true.
All right. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the employee.
Mm-hmm.
What was going through her head? Do you think, suppose, I mean, you had some conversations, but how far into her hire, like, was she there 3-6 months prior? And how do you think she was feeling when this came out? Like when you put her on this improvement plan, when she probably thought she was doing great?
I think she thought I was serious.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she was like, okay, maybe now I know what's expected of me, right? And then, okay, so this is what's happening. And then she did the work.
Great. And not all situations work out that well. So, you ended up having a happily ever after scenario. You can have some individuals that might approach this as though you were the big bad wolf and that you were trying to expose Red Riding Hood and, and look at it from that. What do you think were some of the attributes that you had in that conversation with her that kept you from being the big bad wolf and that she could still deliver her cookies to grandma?
I think kindness, right? And I still said, I don't want you to fail. I'm not doing this for you to fail. I'm doing this so that you clearly understand what's expected. And that way we can move forward and, figure out what the future looks like. So it's not, I'm not the big bad wolf. I need to hold people accountable on the team, because if she didn't feel like somebody else was performing and I didn't hold them accountable, how's she going to feel? So I think there's that whole explanation of, and what support does she need from me to help her accomplish these things?
Yeah.
I always want to make sure that they understand that I'm there to support, and remove any roadblocks and help them out and support them.
How defensive was she when you had the conversation with her?
She wasn't real defensive. I think I think to an extent she was a little aware of what she was doing and what the other folks were doing. She wasn't really defensive. She listened. She took it in. I don't remember questions that she asked, but I mean, I think it was just more like a conversation where, these are the things that I need you to do. And, if you need help with any of them, please let me know and we can get you help with whatever training, whatever you need.
So you had the other two in this position, though, you'd stated they were working late and doing all these things. So was the expectation that you worked longer hours, or was it getting just the work done?
I don't believe in setting our expectations. I believe in getting the work done. So whatever that takes. You're a salaried employee, you're expected to do a job, and whatever that takes. So if that's, if that's something you can get done in 6 hours, great. If it's something that you can get done in 12 hours, okay. But if it's something that you're working 12 hours and then this person's working 6 hours, you're a team. So you need to figure out how to help that. And even me, right? If my team's working 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever, what can I do to help alleviate some of that burden? Because if one person's working 12 hours, that's not okay. You know what I mean? When there's a team of 6. And how is everybody else spending their time too? So, I never counted hours because I just don't think that's a right thing to do for salaried employees.
So I want to take and then use this example. So obviously your moment was just assuming information without it being clear. So we can now say that for individuals who are wanting to approach a career advancement or some development, that if they feel that expectations aren't clear, then they can have a conversation to get them clear by having them put in writing. Oftentimes people think that sometimes putting things in writing is a bad, it's bad, right? But I look at it like this: you have agreements and you write things down for people to agree to, so there's no misunderstanding. It's not a matter of I don't trust that I don't trust you. It's just a matter of let's make sure that we're working together on the same page. And there can be lots of dynamics that are happening. So I think that it makes sense that individuals who aren't clear on what their job expectations are should speak some life to that, ask some questions. When they do have a meeting, even if it comes to them as a surprise, not meeting expectations, to make sure that they're not defensive in that meeting, because I would assume that defensiveness could rile you up a little bit.
Yes, I think it could. Yeah, for sure. Especially because it wasn't the first time that I'm like, what are you working on whenever they're so busy? So it certainly wasn't the first time, but it's also, it's just having it clear and no emotion,
Yeah.
right? That helps. You can have empathy for sure, but it's just the point of the meeting and the point of the performance improvement plan and everything is clear.
And if you were to, and you talked about communication, so if you were to rate the percentage of communication that belongs to the leader and to the follower, in this case the employee, what percentage do you think goes to which person?
I think it's 50-50. Honestly, it could be higher with the person being led, because if the leader doesn't know, and that's the thing too, I think a lot of people will complain about their managers, but if the manager doesn't know things, how can they fix them? So I think I think it's at least 50-50, at least.
Yeah. And I think that what you also kind of allude to is something that we refer to as silent toxicity. It's when an organizational, we have an individual in an organization and they want to go talk to somebody else about the boss instead of going directly to the boss. It's a little thing we call triangulation, where two people have a conversation about a third person, and it typically never resolves itself from the two people talking. It always has to go back and involve the third person that was in the whole situation, that triangle, to get that resolved, and really having the courage to have those conversations. And then there's an art and a science to it. Yes, you want the leader to understand that you're working, but going in like a bull in a china closet doesn't necessarily help your situation. You have to understand it's not that you kowtow to the leader in the sense of, oh, kind sir, kind ma'am, but it's basically, let's present what your feelings in a way in which they can be heard, so that you can then have a conversation that you forward after that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the meeting was fairly, it was me explaining why we were there, that type of thing. She didn't have much to say in the meeting.
Yeah.
And then the next one, the follow-up, it was like, okay, well, you've done a lot of these things, so that's good. We're making progress.
She let her walk through the talking, basically.
Yeah.
This whole conversation brings up two quotes that I love incorporating into our programs from Brené Brown. Clear is kind, right? You're kind when you say it clearly. But we already talked about the comprehension piece, but also painting done. And in this case, I would say that the done is the end goal is your expectations. Here is what your roles are. So filter your daily work through that done, through here's what you're supposed to do. And so, okay, when you're not sure, come back to see that first, see rule 1 first. If not, come back to me. But if you give those clear expectations, that's how they can govern their days, basically.
Very true.
Yeah. And I think that as an employee, that if you want to subscribe to certain values, like, I have integrity, I'm innovative, I have excellence, I like teamwork, then you should be asking yourself, what actions are you taking to do that? What we find is that individuals who are more successful inside of an organization than others are those individuals who not only seek to be included from their own perspective, but they find ways to make sure others around them are included. That's a little bit of like getting rid of that drama that you mentioned in the beginning, but it's basically, it's focusing on making sure that everyone feels like they're needed, they're a part of it, that they are belonging in the situation, that they have meaningful work, that's their value, and their passion will be able to come alive because what they're doing really matters. And then really achieving mutual commitment, that is achieving those desired outcomes, is like what you wrote down in that list of things. Here's what it is. And in that aspect, you needed her and she needed you. And then you had to develop a level of trust that she would tell the truth and do the job that she was hired to do. And when you do that, you have created this cohesive sort of phenomenon within the organization that you are now clearly a part of. And it's not just up to the boss to clear the way and to make sure that all those things are done. Today's worker wants and needs to be more involved in this process. So we've got some that actually know what they need to do, others who are kind of maybe on the fence, that just really need to have a very proactive way of having a conversation that encourages accomplishing things together without adding a level of entitlement. When you add a level of entitlement to the conversation, it changes the potential outcome you have, because now it puts people on a more defensive posture. So instead of being entitled to it, determine how you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Danielle, we love chatting with you. Love the aspect that you bring. For those listening, Danielle helps lead us in those areas for interviews, those mock questions you have, resume building. Danielle is our proverbial cohesion culture crew expert in all areas of HR, and she has worked with us to do coaching within some of our client base. So, really reaching out. So with that being said, now I've teed this up. How do people find you?
I have a Facebook page called the Intentional Leader Collective. And then also it's my website is www.engage-hr.com.
Engage-hr.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Super. All right. Now, what is a question you thought that Ben and I would ask you that we didn't?
Oh my goodness. I was pretty much open to anything, so I didn't know, because sometimes you guys come out of left field. But it's always interesting, and I always learn so much from you both. So I'm grateful to have been on here.
Good. And so that question is something that we would prompt an individual to know when they go into an interview, right? They should be prepared for the unexpected. It doesn't just happen on Big Brother. It also happens at interviews, right? All right. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your wisdom about this and being vulnerable to, being transparent to share your experience with us. So we're going to close out our podcast like we close all of our cohesion culture programs with this mantra. You don't have to know everything.
You just need to be teachable.